We're talking about Severance today, directed by Ben Stiller and Ifa McCardle. It's a show, it's a series streamed on Apple TV, starring Adam Scott, Patricia Arquette, and others. And this is a series that I thought was one worth watching. I'm not a big fan of shows in general. I prefer to watch movies. But when something like this comes along, I think everybody should see it, and I think it would be unfortunate to miss it. Just to briefly go over the premise, there is a large corporation called Lumen Industries in a very small town. And what does Lumen do? We don't know. And neither do their workers, because they all go through a procedure called the severance, which separates their work self from their regular life self. This series does a really great job of either keeping the viewer with the same amount of information as the characters on screen, or using dramatic irony to just create more suspense as the characters get into some sketchy situations. And it's a very personable series because if you've ever worked or had a job, you could relate. The series does a lot of things very well, and what really stands out is that it's very philosophical in the fact that you could really theorize and come up with your own ideas of what is going on, but it also raises a lot of questions. It raises a lot of questions surrounding corporations and their moral responsibilities as well as their ethics, and just simply what is too much power. As you see tech companies becoming digital governments and Amazon taking over the world, the questions in this show really are spot on with today's society. Have you ever really questioned what you do and why? There are lots of industries and dark areas of certain industry and corporations where you could really sit back and think about, what is it that I really do for this company and why do I do it? I mean, just thinking of these corporations and how much power they're gaining, would you be okay in living in an apartment owned by Twitter as long as it was nice and affordable? And then if you do, how much freedom do you have? Or are you just a small part of the corporation? Are you actually an individual? Are you yourself? And I think this series really brings those questions into play. How relatable the show is really one of its strongest points. You really are part of these characters during their work life and their regular life, and trying to see how one begins to affect the other, which in our everyday life I think everybody questions. And it's been said that you have a job you love, you will live a happy life. But what if 90% of the world doesn't love their job? What does that mean about us? If you ever sat behind the computer from 9 to 5 waiting for that 5 o'clock to hit right on the dot so you could live your other life or your regular life, you really understand the crucial psychological horror in this series. And it is dark. It doesn't come across as a horror, but it's definitely a thriller, and it's definitely a psychological drama. Severance really does a great job of constantly allowing the viewer to come up with ideas regarding Lumen as a company, but also about all the characters and their relationships. This is a series where you can find Reddit threads with speculations about what Lumen does. And if you're someone who loves to theorize and rewatch episodes or rewatch scenes to try to glue parts together and get a step ahead of the curve, this is one of those shows for you. As far as writing and acting, everything comes together very well, but it's all glued by this great cinematography. These symmetrical Wes Anderson-like shots with slow zooms or very extremely slow pans. There are great color schemes and art direction, as well as just a great underlying feeling of uneasiness with the lighting, whether it's extremely fluorescent hospital-like lighting in the office or gloomy and dark dim lights outside of it. As long as this series stays on course and doesn't lose itself within itself, it will be a very, very successful show that I think more and more people will gravitate to. I know that Apple TV doesn't have the largest amount of subscribers, so sometimes these shows go under the radar. But I think that this is one that everybody should watch. It's not very lengthy. It's not, it's not 7 seasons in where you're going to have to really make up for everything. Get ahead of it now because more seasons will come. And I think the overall direction in this show is great. If you haven't watched Severance, please do. To simply put it, it's just worth it.